Interesting. I've got a question for you, if that's all right. Is that allowed?
Well, we might edit it out. What are some of the other opportunities you're seeing in AI?
Consumers are moving to that conversational way of product discovery. But at the core of it all is great product data. So we can't ignore that.
Yeah, it's so exciting. So exciting. Yeah.
And who knows where we end up.
We'll leave that a mystery for now. Hey everyone, it's Richard here. Welcome back to the eCom at One podcast. Today, I'm joined by John Brolly from Athos Commerce, and we're talking about one of the biggest shifts in e-commerce right now, how AI and product data and product discovery are changing the way brands are getting found and sell online. Now, John has a front row view across agencies, brands, and thousands of retailers, which gives him a unique perspective of what's really going on in e-commerce right now. In this episode, we unpack what John's seeing across retailers and why product data is becoming a major driver in visibility and conversion, and of course profit, and what brands need to focus on now to stay ahead. So whether you're trying to get your head around AI, product feeds, LLM visibility, or the future of e-commerce search, this episode will help you understand where the real opportunities are. Now do me one quick favor. Hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this episode so you never miss an episode. Right, let's dive in. Well, thanks for coming on the show, John.
No problem, Richard.
Really, thanks for coming over to see us.
Thank you
Pleasure.
for having me.
We've met a couple of times over the years,
but
we haven't really had a proper, what I would say a proper chat. So it's great to have you in. Great to have you on the show. Thanks for coming over to Lincoln to our
Honor
HQ.
and a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. So my understanding and my researchers tell me that you are a man that knows a lot of people in e-com. A lot of people, a lot of agencies, a lot of brands, more importantly. And obviously a lot of brands listen to our podcast and a lot of agencies. And I'm really keen to understand, we're sort of sitting on the other side of Q1 has just been and gone. We're sort of mid-April almost. Yeah. And Q1, it's usually quite an interesting time for a lot of e-com brands. But what are you sort of seeing out there? Or what have you seen in Q1 in terms of the e-com brands?
A bit of fluctuation. I think there was a bit of hangover from Q4 last year. Yep. A bit of intrepidation. So it started off slow, then got a bit intense, and then filtered off towards, an early Easter. And I think, if I'm honest, an early Easter made a bit of a difference for closing Q1. So towards the tail end of Q1, little bit more quiet, but very much quite an active mid-period for sure.
Yeah. So probably a more active February than normal.
I'd say so. I mean, it's it's just a gamut of brands and retailers and merchants that you deal with, depending on their financial years, what they're looking at, whether there's tax, the tech stack is up for review. Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint one specific. So I just say it's quite fluid. Yeah,
bit of a mix,
active, bit of a mix. Yeah, a few lulls in between.
It's an interesting time of year, isn't it? Because you're dealing with obviously if you want to call it a hangover from Christmas or a good or a bad, you've got maybe a lot of stock that's got to be paid for late Jan, Feb. Yeah. So cash flow potential challenges, need to move some stock. So maybe a bit of a tighter margin is maybe needed to clear through some stock.
Exactly. Yeah. Seasonal. We can't, it's a warm day today.
It's nearly 25 degrees, John, today.
Unusually warm for the time. Thank you, brought the weather. It must be to do with a surname, But it's that external force that none of us have control over, and it is having an impact, and the activity around, what's going on in the world is a little bit more cautious, But there is a buoyancy, and I've got to talk about the weather, and the weather comes in, the sun comes out, people seem a bit more alive and, and ready to go for it. Yeah,
definitely makes a difference, doesn't it? I think.
It does.
Yeah, it's a very, exciting time of year. There seems to be a bit of a step change with a few people we're speaking to, and an excitement, like you say, this time of year. I think the weather's a bit bizarre. I'm talking about the weather on a UK podcast, of course.
Of course, we've got to talk about the weather. But that spring in your step, a bit more positivity. Yeah. It generally lifts people's moods, and people, are starting to make some plans.
So I think I think that, like you say, there's quite a lot going on at the moment around the world, e-com and so forth. But ultimately, you must see, I assume, certain patterns of things that successful e-com stores are doing, or things that the successful stores are doing. Yeah. What are maybe 3 things that you're seeing stores that are doing well are doing that are sort of maybe helping that profitability? Because ultimately we sort of usually end up talking about profit in the podcasts and in the agency and with our clients and so forth, because ultimately it's pretty much common sense. If you're making a few quid, you're usually doing all right. If you're not,
big driver is conversion.
Yeah.
I think, as I'll talk about our platform in a little while, but what we offer an immediate uplift in conversion, which obviously aids profitability. Now, with that, I think the 3 things is, everybody's talking about product data, and that is one of them. And I think product data, brand data, and data in itself, and data hygiene and structure to data is very key. Often brands, retailers might run away from it, but that's why they've got experts such as yourself, other agencies that will get involved and help them. And the same for our technology. So our technology will aid that product enrichment to therefore aid all the touch points where consumers are looking to shop, to look for products. So I think that data piece, and with that, I think general, it's got to be a good experience. Whether we call it connected commerce, call it a seamless experience, whether it's brick and mortar, whether it's channel marketplace, whether it's on site, I think consumers are looking for that seamless experience. It's got to feel the same. It's got to be relevant, and therefore understand your channels, including your own storefront, and make sure that you're delivering a really good user experience. The UX is key. And then, what we might not talk about this in detail, but I'm an ops guy, traditionally. Operational efficiency. And some of the more simplest things are just communication, relevant communication as and when, ensuring the right product pack, delivery on time. And then that goes through the entire offering that brands and retailers should be thinking about.
So that consistency throughout the brand message and the delivery, the way you present yourself, the service.
The service is key, and we talk about relevancy. I talk about product relevancy a lot, but with that is also communication relevancy as well. Yeah. Nobody wants to be spammed. Nobody wants to receive information that's meaningless. Yeah, and it's just look after the essentials, and I think it's some of the foundational pieces there,
So 3 very specific areas there. I think the thing I'm really keen on and to discuss further is this sort of hygiene, data, consistency, and obviously that leads us on to all sort and opens up sort of, we had a little chat earlier before about UCP and product feeds, and it just, this is the world we're in. This is, this is like the difference between doing well, doing okay, and then doing actually, because everybody's using XYZ tool to get their AI, this, that, and the other, to get their data feed here.
To be visible in new channels,
If we were to just open that up a bit more, let's say, right, well, what are a couple of things in that sort of hygiene, data, feed? I know that's slightly off, but it's there. What are 1 or 2 things that you think most of our listeners maybe have not got right? Or they should get,
structured data and schema.
Yeah.
I think, as you said, we've been doing this for a while, both of us. I was in the world of product feeds back in 2011, 2012, and it was a bit of a dark arts, a bit dirty, not really exciting.
Yeah.
I think there's a point of we're making it exciting because it has to be. So there's an ability within that structured format is to make it exciting, but with the rise of the new channels, the LLMs that we'll talk through, is this ability for machines to read structured data correctly. So you can extend your product data set way beyond descriptions to intent and usage, and furthermore, micro attributes, as I've been saying with some.
So maybe give us as an example then of, say you sell, pick a product. What?
It's just like an overshirt. If I've got an overshirt, I'm wearing an overshirt today. It's probably thicker than what I needed because I didn't know the temperature was going to be.
Specific attribute.
So an attribute to wear it for this particular temperature.
Maybe, or temperature.
Yeah, temperature, Whether it's made from a linen, breathable cotton. Yeah. Go into that granular piece. And then when, consumers are moving to that conversational way of product discovery. So I want to wear a lightweight shirt that, doesn't feel too heavy, that is breathable for 22 to 25 degrees.
Yeah. So that search you just said is about 20 words.
Yeah.
And you've probably got your phone and you're on LLM XYZ and you're going, hey, I'm looking for a breathable shirt that's not too thin, not too thick, but okay. And I want it to be this color, but I need, so you mentioned obviously the normal stuff like color and size, but then you've gone in around the weight.
Bit more specifics.
You've added in 3 or 4 more
so
attributes.
Contextual usage.
Yeah. More conversational usage.
And it's the conversational, and that goes back to the structured data elements. So I mentioned micro attributes, low level attributes, whatever you want to term it. That's the extension from what product feeds used to be, which was product title, description, body description, etc.
Yeah.
We're going into the low level behavioral intent usage of a product. Yeah. And I think that's the fascinating bit.
Yeah. And then that feeds into then, obviously if you're using that information for data feeds, product feeds, Google Shopping, Meta, so forth. How's that going to impact?
Well, it's more than just feeds. It's on site as well. And again, I'll home back into our platform in particular because we take care of the on-site piece. So that conversational search also on site and building what we call a rich product index allows for greater relevancy in bringing products back to consumers when they are searching for products. Mm-hmm. And I think that's key across all channels, whether that's current new LLMs as new channels, traditional marketplaces, traditional search engines. They still have a validity as well as on-site. But at the core of it all is great product data. Yeah. And I think we're going down a bit of a nerdy hole here, but I can quite happily carry on.
I love it because I think this is where, I think probably, however many hundreds of brands are listening right now on a good day. Yeah. I think, the reality is everyone's getting better at product feeds because, whichever platform they use, they've got their own AI that's making, their, as we call it, the level in the playing field, but then how do you unlevel this is somebody else's terminology, not mine. So I borrowed it for a second, but how do you unlevel that? Everyone's getting better and better at feeds, because the tech, whether it's your tech, whoever's tech is getting better, which is good, great. But if everyone's using the same tech, then you've really, really, really got to use the tech properly, because we've got a lot of people buy tech and use, we could list various data.
Pareto 80-20 rule.
Yeah. So it's like, what are we doing with that feed to not just, we're using insert whatever tech, great, you're now already a little bit better. But if everyone's using the same tech, how do you level the playing field?
I think that's where brand and identity comes in as well. Yeah. So we can't ignore that, Yeah. If you're a particular if you're a merchant or a brand, then brand sentiment as well, brand history, brand noise is important as well. Got to differentiate yourself. You know, in the example of the shirt, I'm not going to say what brand it is, but it's a particular label that I like to wear. Yeah. And again, I've got an affiliation with that label. You know, so that's why brand is important, as well as content usage, product usage. But then it also goes into the wider aspect of, we're talking about micro attributes, is review and user-generated content as well that is key. And you bring it all together and you bring in performance data across multiple channels. From a brand perspective, you've really got a handle on what your consumers, what your prospects are searching for.
Yeah. Very exciting, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. I think it's like, I feel like data feeds and product sort of data is having I'll say resurgence, but
I'd say it's a resurgence.
But it is a bit of something we've always done. We've always had full-time team that, looked after data feeds and product feeds, more in the earlier days just for shopping, back in the day really, but obviously it sits across all channels really. Ultimately if that data has got, the additional information.
It's that enrichment. And another example is like taking performance, because you work with a number of external channels and you capture that audience, that segmentation behavior, that performance data. You can bring that back onto site. You can then merchandise accordingly with segments. And then you're making it a really seamless, journey, really seamless user experience.
Yeah. And then we touched on UCP, didn't we, when we were chatting earlier? And this all feeds into that, doesn't it? Ultimately, you've got a better and better product data. Means you're going to appear more in things.
Theoretically, expose yourself more into the LLMs, machine readable. And I think you're right. Sorry, Richard, just to cut you short there, because we were talking about UCP. It's still in its early infancy. there's changes from some of the larger, organizations involved in the space, where 1 week they'll be going down one route, 2 weeks later they may have reversed out and then working with another partner. So as long as everybody is aware within our space that some of the core of this is essentially good structured data, means that you will be able to support what comes. Whether that's transactions in LLMs or transactions of LLMs embedded in site.
100%.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. It's so exciting. It's exciting. I mean, you literally, there now, isn't it, really? Just grabbing your phone and going, hey, I'm looking for a new, I mentioned it earlier, but I'm looking for a new PC. Mine's about 6 years old, I realised. When I got back, I've just been travelling for a bit, got back, and my computer, I was like, oh, no, this is so flipping slow. I've been using my laptop while I've been travelling, and I thought, all right, do you know what? So I thought I'll get some memory and this thing, and I thought it's past that. So I went, and I thought, I'll just have a little chat.
You can get specific, can't you?
And it was very much this conversational, obviously, piece. Now, if the sites that were getting shown in in the LLM that I'm using,
without saying
there's only a couple really. There's likely to be, but we'll leave that a mystery for now. But ultimately, if the attributes aren't on the sites, or they're not in the feeds, or they're not coming up, or if you're not getting cited in certain places that the LLMs are drawing their data from, you're not going to come up.
And and I mean that's a good point. You just triggered something. Then is like going back to my olden days in working in the agencies. We used to expose so much product data that wasn't used, and it was often seen as not needed to be used, not needed to appear on a PDP, not needed to be there as part of the product description. What we're finding now is that actually we're moving away from just keywords and static attributes. Is actually bringing these aggregated together forms a response for conversational inputs. It is. It's a fascinating, exciting, and who knows where we end up though.
But what I do know is that the merchants that sort of explore these, there's like this core. Okay, we've got our great product data. Obviously, what does that mean? And what's this LLM doing? And what's this platform? What's Amazon drawing on? What's ChatGPT? What's Claude? Hang on. ChatGPT ads are launched. How does the ads? Where are they getting the data? And it's like a 2%, 3%, 5%, whatever stat we want to look at, but give it 12 months, 24 months.
And I think
if you're not doing any of that stuff, you've lost.
You'll be left behind.
You are, because that's the difference between if you're getting another up or down 10% in your business.
And it isn't scary
as well. It's alive or not alive. So
I think that's important, Richard. I think we both said that before. It isn't scary for brands. Don't be worried about it. There's enough technology out there to work with. But I think we get to a point of having, standard structured taxonomies. Who's going to win? I'm not going to say it might be Google, but an understanding of product types and where they sit. And now with a number of tools, we have tools that can understand the channel feed, understand where it's missing some data, and present options to enrich.
So maybe tell me then, Athos, what's the sort of advantage of a retailer using Athos?
Well, I mean, we've come to market as a product discovery platform, a number of technologies through a merger and acquisitions over a number of years, which enables us to, as I say, every consumer touch point where a consumer is searching or browsing to purchase a product, Athos can power that. And that's it in a nutshell. That is it in a nutshell.
So maybe we've talked about feeds. So obviously you've got that sort of ticked off, but let's maybe give the listeners an insight into.
So in terms of on-site, so we obviously, part of what we do is that product enrichment piece. We've got inherent search capabilities for on-site. So a combination of keyword, natural language processing as well. Then you've got merchandising, which I touched on, which used to be seen as a bit of a dying art and having a resurgence because you've got these low-level attributes, which can be used from a merchandising perspective, with performance data bringing in, and then you've got really rich merchandising relevant, as well as recommendations, product bundling as well. And we're in the agentic space as well. So we're looking at, we've currently got an agentic storefront piece that's being evolved. And that's, it's going to be fascinating to see where that comes.
So that's like generative discovery.
Yeah, generative discovery. So it's an embedded, storefront within a storefront, so to say. And we're talking with a number of technologies and partners about where this can go in the future. So it's very much a work in progress. We've got capabilities now from the off, but, very much see that's part of Athos, evolution as we move forward. In the product discovery world. Yeah,
it is exciting, isn't it?
It is.
Genuinely,
it is.
I think I've probably never been as excited in our in our world. There's a lot of.
Because it's scary, this change. I mean, change is good.
Change is good.
I
think this is the thing, isn't it? It is change, and that's the we talk about change a lot on the podcast, but ultimately embracing these things. Of course, some of these things might come and go, but if you're sort of having a trying some of these things to a degree, it's not like all in budget on all this new stuff. Hang on a minute, a lot of the fundamentals remain the same, but there is a shift like we've never seen before. The way people are searching, and buying, and that's not going away.
And impacting operations as well.
Of course, some of these platforms may be more successful than others, and we don't know. Sitting here 12 months ago, it was ChatGPT. Well, hang on a minute, there's been a real shift this last last month I've just come back, as you know, from an AI conference over in Asia for 10 days, and big shifts going on in terms of preference and quality of data, and
I think it's the rapidity of development now is changing. In developing products, trying to keep up with the shift around ACP and UCP as well, and understanding the specification of that.
Yeah.
But from a retailer perspective, because I know we're very much retailer focused, both of us here, retailer brands, is that don't be scared of it. Don't try and do the big digital transformation piece. Look at micro transformations.
Yeah.
Look at your tech stack, evaluate what you're currently paying, look to see where you can get improvements.
Yeah.
Talk to specialists.
Yeah.
Get help, but don't be scared, because as long as you start early enough and you're moving the right way, then, everyone's going to win.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think, obviously things are changing and so forth, like the tech stack, do that audit, see, chat to but everyone's in a similar boat where it's a bit, not maybe uncertainty is maybe not the right word, but it's not far off. Like understanding the changes, things are moving really, really quickly. But I think it's putting an element of resource, time, budget into the looking at it rather than burying your head and think, well, no, we do it this way, and then we've got a good feed guy who does the feeds. And hang on a minute, what are you doing with the A/B generative?
With the experimentation.
What's that?
I mean, that's an important point. Brands, retailers, and merchants will have partners. They will, tech partners, agency partners. It's important to own those relationships, push those relationships to make sure you're getting the best out of us.
Yeah.
But don't be scared asking the questions. Ask for advice. I mean, that's what we're here for. It's.
I think that's the benefit of working with somebody like yourself. Obviously, you've got that breadth of a lot of agencies that you're dealing with, but ultimately then thousands of merchants, and that collective sort of experience data set. It's not just at least 3 or 4 clients are doing this. Hang on a minute, these hundreds of clients. And that's obviously the benefit of working with an agency, working with a partner that's got the sort of breadth of experience. Yeah.
I think, and that's important. I think, coming from partnerships, it's important for brands to build these partnerships with their third-party agencies and tech providers.
So we've covered quite a bit of ground in like the first 15 minutes. I feel like we're gathering some serious.
We haven't peaked too early, have we, Richard?
I'm not sure. I think there's a bit left to go.
Okay, cool.
So I think data feeds. I think data. Hygiene and adding those additional attributes, and I think understanding what depending on what you sell, what are some of the attributes. And that's it depends on the listener. But I think feel free to reach out to me, reach out to John. If you sell something that obviously we've not talked about. Obviously we've talked about 1 or 2 niches there. There's different attributes and different sort of data required for different
verticals.
Different verticals, all very, very different.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered that well. But what are some of the other opportunities you're seeing in AI at the moment?
Cool. Yeah. So obviously AI is not new. We know that. Machine learning we've been utilizing for quite some time in the space. I think the generative piece is exciting from an efficiency perspective. Number of brands that can maybe do a single lifestyle shot and then generate multiple assets and video. It makes sense. It's efficient. It saves money.
Yeah.
Not ideal for the original content creator. They may well be hit. So there's that efficiency piece. And I think from an operations perspective, the AI tools that you would either build internally, whether you're using, Lovable, Google AI Studio, you can build
like
efficiencies.
the Vibe code type.
Yeah, Vibe code, which works internally,
Yep.
But there's a lot of intuitive tech coming out there, and it's fast-paced, really changing. Don't be scared of it. And I think the idea is that it is impacting the industry, but I think realize the opportunity, and it's around efficiency, and will save you time on some of the more mundane tasks that you used to have to do.
Yeah.
And that's through what I do, what you probably have to do as an agency, and what a brand might have to do, and whether that's generating content, generating listings,
analyzing
the behavioral patterns. I mean, that's that predictive analysis moves into generative predictions as well, and then take a chance on inventory planning, merchandising.
Yeah,
there's a lot to think about.
That's a big one, isn't it? I think it's not obviously our as an agency, not something we sort of work with directly, but I think a lot of agencies I see that maybe have a challenge in when it comes to the end of the year and they're doing their financials and we've had a good year. Hang on a minute, but there's 300 grand in the corner of the warehouse over there. Oh yeah, but that's always been there. Or but hang on a minute, what's it on the balance sheet at? 300 grand. It's only worth about 40k.
Yeah,
we made 200 grand last year. Well, actually, you lost 50k then because that inventory
control, whether you want to call it long tail sitting. Is there a different channel we can push this? Is there something around this product that we can dive deeper?
Just that real awareness,
surface it differently. So I think it's impacting. It is changing. There's, I wouldn't say there's scaremongering, but it is impacting the industry.
Yeah,
we are seeing moves around merger and acquisitions. Roles are changing. I think that from a developer's background, they were probably impacted first. But it's around having an assistant.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah,
everybody can have an assistant to help. And get through the day.
When we sort of brought Lovable to the office, if you like, not physically, but I was like, guys, have you seen this? This whatever 18 months ago, and it's sort of taken over the world, hasn't it? Now almost on a vibe coding. I mean, probably by the time this publishes, there'll be another one, but and then the ability to build a proof of concept for an idea. So when we go to an eCom store and we want to build a calculator that helps you choose the product for for your camping or whatever. We've got a lot of camping outdoor clients. Well, back in the day, we would go to a developer, wait 3 months to be signed off, 10,000 quid in 2 months. Now we can build a proof of concept in an afternoon to a point. I mean, that's an extreme example, and there's a bit more to it than that. But ultimately, the speed to be able to test stuff, and then there's the whole discussion around security and the validity of the code and so forth, and and what we're doing with that, I'll be really putting it on the site. Well, there's all different sort of
as long as you've got the right people in place looking after those elements,
security type stuff. But obviously, ultimately, you can prove, you can test ideas very, very quickly, very, very cheaply, which is very exciting. I'd say all of our clients have now got various tools on their sites. Fast forward 18 months or so. All of our SEO account managers are pretty au fait, more than au fait, at creating tools as part of our,
it should be part of the offer.
Whereas a year ago, we wanted it to be part of the offer, but it's 10 grand.
Yeah.
Whereas now, we can build tools very, very quickly. There's a lot of caveats to that because obviously there's security I'm talking about more so what we do and don't do to websites and so forth. But ultimately, and then that goes through, you touched on video and product, inventory, product videos and so forth.
Creation.
Using choose your tool or your weapon of choice.
I mean, you've got like take a single shot, generate a video, do the reverse, take a video, generate a load of static images, generate some lifestyle images, generate product shot images, choose a background. The tools are out there, and I think the prototyping and POC is a really good point because in one way, what you say, Richard, is that's something you used to maybe charge 10k. Can't do that now, but you've got a more efficient tool to deliver proof of concept. It's not right. We tweak it. Tweak it. We get to the third proof of concept.
Keyword.
Exactly. But it's the ability to spin up these POCs, knowing it's a POC, but getting the appetite for sign off.
Does it fit? Similarly with other content, isn't it? If you were going to create, we need to create an 8,000 word guide about XYZ. Well, that's 4 people full time for a month. Or there's an element now of we can use this, that, and the other, and it's one person full time for 2 weeks.
And that interesting. I've got a question for you, if that's all right. Is that allowed?
Well, we might edit it out. But.
So with that, do you think the skill set moves from you mentioned vibe coding, you got vibe coding, prompt engineering, prompting, but ultimately this is communication, isn't it? We're going it's like an ability to understand, to feed. Structured language.
I think the ability into a machine. To describe, to break down something, to understand the wider context of what you're trying to do to then explain it to whatever LLM or software is a big skill. I think that's where actually a lot of business owners have got that skill, because they're quite often very good at explaining and communicating. Most successful business people are successful because they're good communicators in my eyes.
Agree.
And good with people and and nurturing people, but that's usually communication. So therefore they should be pretty good at
should be transferable.
Discussing with an LLM about, we wanted to do this and da, 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 da. So I think the ability to describe but obviously you need an understanding of how the different LLMs work and what their preferences are, and the sort of breakdown of an ideal sort of way to
approach
it. But I think having that ability to communicate very, very well is going to really help you. It does really, I see it here,
And I think that goes
if you give a basic prompt, at the most basic form, if you give a basic prompt to an LLM, you're going to get
something average by.
And you go, oh, ChatGPT's rubbish. Well, hang on, you gave it 4 words.
Perseverance.
If you give it, if you give
perseverance.
it detail and half a dozen specific, I mean, that's
and test. I think you mentioned experimentation. It's where we're going back to the brand and the brand sentiment and the brand entity and it's the brand's color. It's try things, experiment, refresh, and that's another piece. Is we're talking about efficiency. Is that some of the tool sets available now allows for that regeneration, that refresh piece.
Yeah.
Because we're getting into the realms of real time indexing as well as static indexing. So it's key. It's a good time.
It's ever so exciting. I think like I said, I've come back from this conference and I'm absolutely genuinely wired for the next sort of 3-6 months about there's the opportunity for eCom. There's sort of, it's nice to, there's obviously stuff happening, with the LLMs and the different platforms embracing all the tech and so forth.
But it falls naturally as an industry.
It's just like, it's I think merchants have got to see it as an opportunity, because most people bury their head, and oh, well, I'm not sure about, nobody uses ChatGPT, and hang on a minute, or no, So it's just having that inquisitiveness to be trialing. I mean, this is really something I said probably 12 months ago, but even more so. It's just,
don't be scared. Don't be scared. Dive in, allocate some time to do your research. I think research is key as well, and if unsure, reach out to partners. Plenty of experts out in our industry.
I think we've had half of them on the podcast.
Good.
Other half are queuing up. No. So obviously in your tool set, there's quite a lot of sort of tools there. If it's quite a difficult question.
Don't ask me to say for a brand and retailer were there to pick one what.
So if I was a retailer, selling lots of parts, 50,000 SKUs, doing 30 million quid a year, which is a lot of our clients is in that sort of very much our sort of wheelhouse. What are 1 or 2 tools that you think that really couldn't live without? I know that's quite tricky because there's so many. Well, if you don't know this and we don't know that, but we've got a big SKU count. We're doing, reasonable, good mid-market, £30 million turnover. Tens of thousands of orders a month coming through, £200 or £300 a month.
The essential
average order.
Essentials, I think Richard will be like the data piece from that data
that we talked about. Get the data right,
and then on-site search and merchandising. So merchandising and segmentation. That's a lot of SKUs, isn't it? Within that wide gamut of SKUs, you understand your customer. You understand your broken down segmentation. And then go low level. So you go into personalisation, so you know why they're buying particular SKUs.
And maybe talk to me a bit more about what Athos does around personalisation.
So we've got recommendation and personalisation engine. We can take transactional historical data, once recognised consumers on site. Present relevant recommendations around that. And again, there's different contextual groupings that we can do. That could be in product types. We can do that on a one-to-one, but we can also do it on a one-to-many in a segmentation piece as well. And that segmentation piece could come from your marketing automation tool, which there are many, and as well as that one-to-one, which would come directly from your eCom platform.
Well, that was easy enough, wasn't it?
It was easy enough. I
thought
it is everything.
I thought you were going to have a tough moment there, but no, brilliant. So I think we've covered a lot of ground there. And I'm, as I've said a couple of times, and I can see you are very excited for what we're in at the moment. Really, really exciting time in eCom. I think it's one of the most exciting times that I've encountered, with the sort of opportunity for eCom brands to sort of embrace some of the new stuff that's here and come in, but here. And that's going to be the difference between success and failure, really. I see, rather than, we'll just do this. We'll do SEO this way, and we run our product feed that way. And whoa, hang on a minute. There's a lot of new stuff you can do, and it might be the 5, 10, 20%, but normally if you've got another 10%, you're doing very, very well, aren't you? It's all you need is that little bit to add on to the bottom line sort of thing. So I think, very exciting time. I'm very excited for our clients and so forth. But over the next sort of 12 months, what are you sort of most excited for? If you're
excited or scared,
you decide. I think
excited. I think there's a rapidity of tech being developed, and that's in that generative piece, as well as understanding the shifts and changes within ACP and UCP, and ensuring that I think a number of tech companies, ISVs, there might be blends and mergers, and even extending offerings.
So watching where that goes, understanding what's going to be the...
So rather than having 10 tools to do 10 different things, it might be 2 or 3 tools.
Source of,
And that's why, we specialize in product discovery, but there'll be a blend. I think from an agency perspective, there'll be a lot of change. I think we'll start to see new agencies with a few different specialisms.
With the geo in there, maybe.
It might be a geo, answer engine optimization as well, but definitely a lot of tech around geo, and it is still early days. I mean, we're talking about ChatGPT and transactional in ChatGPT and what's available with OpenAI and Shopify in America currently. Nearly here. What that date is, I don't know, but it's nearly here.
Yeah.
And that's going to be interesting to see whether it's going to work. There's a lot of guesswork around whether that agentic channel is going to be as important as some of the traditional search engines, such as Google and Bing.
But you've got to have a bit of it, haven't you?
You have to be there because the numbers are already showing that.
I refer to I remember you said 2011. I was 2009, just slightly. I think I'm obviously just slightly older than you, believe it or not. And
thank you.
And
I'll take that by the way.
Shopping was free. And it was frugal.
Shopping, was it?
It was free. It was called Frugal. And everyone's like, Frugal, brilliant. We get on page 1 in an hour, and you could, because you just load your feeds there. You're number 1, 2, 3, whatever. Not many people doing it, but then more and more people started doing it. And then fast forward a month or whatever, it's Google Shopping, or it was called Google something I can't remember now. It wasn't Google Shopping, but it was the equivalent of Google. Oh my God, everyone's going crazy. You've got to pay to list on Google now. So obviously most people abandoned it. I'm not paying to go on Google. And then we didn't. And we had the best time ever because, we're paying, but we've
had a bit of a rebound already.
We're outranking all the other people because they're not there because, they can't go on Frugal anymore. It went paid. And this is where now,
there's a bit of rebound.
No one's going to buy off ChatGPT.
But it has to be monetized, doesn't it?
I got the email a couple of days, as this goes live, a few weeks ago now, ChatGPT ads and so forth.
But we know it has to be monetized to a point. And there may be a certain amount. I mean, there's a raft amount of processing capabilities that are going on and a development in the brain.
Got to pay for that somehow, haven't they?
It has to. There has to be a transaction fee associated somewhere. There is.
Yeah.
But going back to where I've got no idea where it's going. And a couple of times if I'm speaking at an event, I'll say are we going to be in the realms of the Black Mirror phase? Where my agent is on my mirror, and I wake up in the morning, it'll be able to read my facial expression or in the glasses. Will it be able to understand that? There'll be tools within your the IoT things may come back to life. So you need some milk, just off it goes and orders.
Yeah,
and you're looking a bit haggard today. You need a bit of need a bit of moisturizer and a bit of
your turmeric's on the doorstep tomorrow.
And so where it goes, I don't know.
Holidays booked, imagine.
Yeah.
A bit tired. Go and tell
but it's going back to that agent. Should always be an assistant that you're in control of. We're not at that Black Mirror point yet, where the machines are in control. Yet,
so I guess the question to the listeners now, we'll leave them with this thought: is what agents are you building? What agents have you got control of? And if the answer's none, then where are you going to start? Have a chat with John. Have a chat with the team here, and let's.
And as I said, don't be scared. Let's take it back to, I think we mentioned foundational. And, as we both said, the product data, brand data, FAQs, delivery information, the customer service data, get all the foundational pieces right.
Yeah.
Get it rich.
Yeah.
Get it correct.
Yeah.
And then you're in good stead for whatever is going to come at us in the industry, And I'm no, soothsayer. I've got ideas, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Well, we'll see, won't we? 12 months, we'll get you back on.
Yeah.
Hopefully we've still got a job.
I'll have a beer down here. Yeah, well, we might. If we don't, we'll still do it,
Well, thanks for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. I like to finish every episode with a book recommendation. Do you have a book to recommend?
I do. It's a hard one to recommend a book, but I'm sort of going down one of my favourite authors, which is quite dystopian, called Michael Marshall Smith. Wrote a book called Only Forward. I think it was 94. Showing my age, might be. But it inspired me to create my band name. But it very much dystopian, set in the future. It's got nods to Ballard in there. And, you look at Black Mirror and we're talking about AI and we are in a bit of a crazy time. But Only Forward was beautiful escapism. Really beautifully written.
Wow.
Very colourful.
Yeah.
Great imagination. I think it was his best book. So anybody who's a fan of Paul Auster, Ballard, I recommend it.
Brilliant. I'll have to check that out.
I won't hear the name of the band, but that's for another conversation.
So we could talk about bands, and I'm sure we'll get into guitars and who's the best guitarist of all time.
God, that's a question. Me? No, it wasn't
Prince.
Me. Good. I saw the 1999 coaster, and he was.
Yeah, we're quite a fan here.
He was phenomenal.
Him in here. He's in my office more.
He was phenomenal. Yeah. And then, to be honest, Hendrix could play guitar a bit.
Didn't somebody ask Hendrix, what's it like being the best guitarist in the world? And he said, you better ask Prince.
And then, what I'm going to say? Vinnie Riley from the Ritty column.
Yeah.
Which is a total, you've got Hendrix one side and you've got Vinnie at the other.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show, John. It's been
not a problem.
An absolute pleasure.
Absolute blast.
For those who want to find out more about yourself, more about Athos, what's the best way to do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn, just John Brolly, and athoscommerce.com. And then just reach out to me. And I'm more than happy to field any questions about anything related to eCom.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for having me, Richard.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast, so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.